Welcome to the Lead Pedal Podcast with your host Bruce Outridge, where he talks all things trucking. Now let's get rolling.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Lead Pedal Podcast. This is episode number 1184. We're going to be talking about buying or leasing a truck today. Our last episode for February, which has been all about business and owner-operators. And should you buy your truck or should you lease your truck? Well, we'll give you some ideas on whether you should do that or not right after this. Hey, let me tell you about Bison Transport before we get further with that. When it comes to equipment, Bison is one of the ones that know their stuff for sure. They buy the best. What can I tell you? You know they buy the best because they're Bison. Did you know that all of their equipment, they've got a great driver support, but all of their equipment is late model Freightliners and Volvo tractors. Their drivers enjoy the safest and most comfortable tractors on the road with integrated powertrains, fully automatic transmissions, and all Bison tractors come equipped with the latest safety features in the Detroit Assurance and Volvo Active Driver Assist platforms. These safety systems provide safety features such as collision mitigation, driver side airbag, land departure, adaptive cruise control, and support the driver at all times while on the road. And they've got their own support team, man, 24/7 live support team for all drivers at Bison. That's why you want to work there. So where do you go? Go to bisondriving.com, tell them we sent you, and drive some of the safest stuff on the road. I mean, that only makes sense, doesn't it? I know. Not everything makes sense. All right, well, let's get into some of this here and what we're talking about today. We're talking about driving or leasing or buying a vehicle. And before we get into whether you should be leasing or buying a vehicle, we should be talking about which dealership you're going to work with. And I got to tell you, friends, there is some shady dealers out there. You've got to be very, very careful about who you buy from, why you buy from them, and what you should be buying them from them for. So, you're going to go to a dealership and you want to look at a dealership I guess if you're specific about type of trucks, is one thing, and the capital required. So if you're looking at a truck to begin with, you look at a dealership, you're going to look at the truck types that you need, and you should know, and I'm not just talking about is it a Volvo or is it a Freightliner or whatever, but depending on what your application is with where you're going to be working, do you need a certain type of truck? Do you need a heavier truck? Do you need something with wet lines? Do you need something with a blower on it? What do you need and how are you going to get there? So we're looking at a dealership. Let's just look at a dealership and let's just talk about how that's going to work. First, some of the questions. Now, you should have questions for everybody. You should be interviewing everybody. You shouldn't just be letting them tell you. You should be telling them, here's what I need. First of all, I want you to ask them, how long have they been in business? If they just showed up on the corner, if you never see advertising from them anywhere, if you never, because there's even the ones that look legitimate, really big ones that you see and you go, wow, they must be legitimate, could be underhanded. I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying they could be. So you really you can't just go by the corner of the street and go, oh, yeah, that looks like a good one. You need to actually ask some questions. So ask how long they've been in business. Do they have access to decent inventory? Now, this is hard for everybody right now, but do they have access to decent inventory? Do they know what they're talking about? Like, if you talk to them, is it just somebody who is kind of working the front desk and doesn't really know anything about trucks, or is there somebody there that you can actually ask some questions and have a meaningful conversation about? What does their repairs and inspections look like? Not only what type are they doing, but do they have a shop, or are they sending everything out? Like, you've got to really think about what they're doing that way. If there's a problem, do they honor any repair problems? Do they offer financing, or do you have to go somewhere else to get financing? It may not always be the best financing there, but do they offer that? Do they have accessible locations, or, it's like dating. If they're never available, what's going on there, right? So do they have an accessible location? Do they have locations throughout the country? Are they able to move inventory around? Do you have to go to Timbuktu to see them? Like, all that kind of stuff, right? Do they market and advertise in reputable places? If you don't see them anywhere online, or if you've never heard of them, or nobody's ever heard of them, that's a sign that things are not probably going right, and you need to maybe walk away from there. And do they offer extra items checks so you know have a decent vehicle? Are they just trying to sell you a vehicle and push it out the door, or are they actually making sure that you've got something you're comfortable with and doing all of the different points and checks and all of that kind of stuff to make sure that you're going forward with the right vehicle for you? So that's looking at a dealership and what you should be looking for and how that's going to work. And let's you know what? Before we get into that, I'm going to just take a short break here, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Ontario Truck Driving School, because we want you to be comfortable. And Ontario Truck Driving School is a great place to get training, and their training involves everything from heavy equipment to bus to limo to truck driving to everything. So they got 9 locations throughout Ontario, which is just unbelievable. They've been around since 1978, and you can find them anywhere by going to otds.com. Give them a call, see what their trainings. They've got a lot of financing operations, so they can get you started. And you want solid training, my friends. You don't want to be stuck with something that's subpar to you. Hey, when we come back, I'm going to tell you all about whether you should be using a new or a used truck, so stay tuned.
Okay, people,
let's begin.
All right, let's talk about new and used. Let's talk about new and used. Do you buy a new truck? Do you buy a used truck? Do you lease? What do you do? Well, there's a couple things that you need to look for when you're doing this. First of all, buying new or used. When you're starting out, I always suggest used. Sorry. New is about your 4th truck in, right? You don't usually start with think of yourself as a kid. You don't usually start with the new car, although kids today seem to do that. You want to make sure that you remember a truck is a fixed expense, right? So you want to make sure you get one that's as low as possible so that you have flexibility when the market goes up and down. So making sure that you check that and saying that get a good used. I'm not saying buy a piece of crap, but buy a good used truck that will get you 4 or 5 years down the road. That's what you want to do. And in 4 or 5 years down the road, you're going to flip that truck, and then you're going to buy a little nicer truck. Maybe not a new truck, but a little nicer truck than that, and you'll hold that for 4 or 5 years. If you see how successful owner-operators are running, a lot of them are flipping their trucks every 4 or 5 years. They just don't want the hassles of maintenance, right? The ones that are keeping them I've seen a lot of drivers get into trouble keeping trucks for 10, 11, 12 years. Even our cars, I know after 9 years, it's going to start nickel and diming you, depending on what you've been doing with it. So, every 4 or 5 years, you're probably going to flip. So if that's the case, if you're buying a used truck, a decent used truck that's going to last you 4 or 5 years is where you want to start. Now, if you have credit issues or, you can't, then you may have to go to a lease truck, and that's going to probably be a newer vehicle, right? So preferably buying a used truck is going to be your best option. If you can't, then you're going to have to lease, and probably a leased vehicle is going to be a fairly new vehicle, I would imagine, unless you get something off a lease. And again, those are things to talk about. A truck will last you about 20 years, right? So if people have taken care of it, if you got the first 4 years are the toughest ones. That's when a truck's broken in. If you've had a bad driver on a truck, you're going to have a piece of crap that's just going to be a problem after problem. But if you got somebody good on that first 4 years of the truck that, knows how to drive and has taken care of the truck, that truck will last you for a long time. And I've seen trucks sold over and over. Every 5 years, someone different. And you can see that as it went down the line, people stopped taking care of it. But boy, especially if you get in, I can tell you, I work for a chemical company, and we bought our trucks, but we leased our maintenance, which is perfect because we got things fixed whenever we needed to. We didn't have to wait and see if the boss, had enough money to fix the air conditioner. We just went in and got things fixed. So the trucks were kept up. The company owned the trucks, so they had the ability to sell them, and that is how things work. So if you don't have the power, you don't have the down payment to buy a truck, or you don't have the credit or whatever, then you probably will have to lease a truck. And if you're leasing a truck, then you're probably going to be a little, you have to watch what you do here. Some of the power of buying a new truck, a new truck is going to give you a higher purchase price, so resulting in a high fixed cost. So now you're going to have a fixed cost that doesn't go down for a long period of time, possibly higher insurance rates due to replacement costs. It can easily override your budget. Warranties may not cover all your components, or you have to hold on to the unit longer to make that money back. High depreciation costs. The normal deposit required for a truck is 20% of the purchase price. That's a new truck. That's really where you're looking for a new truck. And of course, they've always got the point where they can take it back if you can't pay them bills. Now, of course, a used truck has a lower purchase price, lower fixed item in your budget, which is what you want, lower depreciation costs because it's already, that saying, right? You drive it off the lot, there goes 10 grand. Important to investigate history of the unit. The truck will be broken in, and used trucks normally still require a 20% down payment if possible. You want to look into warranties with this as well. Warranties are for new and used trucks, should all have warranties purchased with them. Get an oil sample done. This is important. Know what your engine's doing on the inside as well as on the outside. So don't overbuy on your components. Warranties should include extended warranties, bumper to bumper warranties, engine component, all that kind of stuff. We've done, I don't know how many episodes on warranties, so you can certainly look into that as well. So should you buy, we can't tell you whether you should buy a truck or lease a truck. That's totally your personal decision based on your personal finances, all that kind of stuff. We can't tell you that, but I can tell you who can tell you that. RS 2000 tax consultants, that's who can tell you that. And that's why you want to work with somebody like that, because they're accountants that understand trucking and can tell you and give you that kind of information as to whether you should be leasing or should be buying a truck. That's how that's going to work. Hey, you know what? We come back here. We're going to talk about where you might be able to find capital for that. For that truck that you're looking to buy if you don't have it on your own. So stay tuned. All right, and check out rs2000tax.com is where you want to go. rs2000tax.com is where you want to go to check out for that accounting here. Let's talk about capital just for a minute. You're going to need operating capital. You're going to need different kinds of capital, right? You're going to need operating capital. This is how much money you're going to need to start up. You're going to need investment capital, possibly lines of credit, financing for equipment. So operating capital is how much you're going to need to move forward until you are paid. Remember, when you start, you don't get paid day one, you get paid day 30 or 60. So you're going to need some money to get things started. Think about your personal expenses. How are you going to do that for a little while? Investment capital is how much you'll need to get the business started. So what do you actually need to buy a truck and a parking spot and a trailer and insurance and all those things you're going to need? How much are you going to need there? And then, of course, you can use lines of credit. They're good for reserve to balance the operating capital, but be careful with those. And then financing of equipment and operations. Now, stay away. Most big banks won't look at you. So if you're looking at one of the big three banks here in Ontario, they're probably not going to look favorable for trucks. They don't want anything to do with trucks. They don't like trucks. And so they don't want anything to do with them. But there are lots of places where you can go. So go and check out, again, start with the dealership. Ask people around who have financed equipment before where they go. There's lots of places around, lots of secondary spots where you can go and get capital. You just need to know where they are. All right. So that's a big thing. And that's something to start with, to think about before you go into that. So again, if you want to get a workbook book on this. My book, Running by the Mile, is a book that you can get, and you can go through all of these steps and see exactly what's going on with that. All right, so hey, before we give you a disclaimer, remember this information is general in nature, so please check with your accountant, check with your lawyer, check with your boss, check with your wife, check with whoever. Make sure you're doing the right thing. We're just giving you this general in nature so that you will have an idea of what you should be looking for, but you certainly don't want to be going down the wrong road. I don't know your personal situation, so just remember that as we go forward. All right, hey, you know what? Make sure you follow us. We're on socials. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, all of that kind of stuff, YouTube, and you know what? Check out our stuff. We've been talking about, go back over the episodes. We've been talking about business all month long. Go back over those episodes and check out the ones that are important to you and do your homework. I know after one, I got an email from somebody who said, you know, they were just talking about the different types of owner-operators. I sent them the information. I said, go listen to this episode again. So go check that out. Thanks for being with us, everybody. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you later. Bye for now.
This has been another episode of the Lead Pedal Podcast. For more information or to subscribe to the podcast, visit theleadpedalpodcast.com and be sure to follow the podcast on Facebook and Twitter.